motorhomediaries.com.
Our topic tonight is one that is very much on people's minds here in Nashville and in Tennessee. It's midnight tonight that the law goes into effect to allow concealed carry firearms into restaurants, which was our inspiration to put on this event.
This has been an issue that has been close to my heart on this as a restaurateur and as the person who supports freedom and liberty. As a libertarian and a firm believer of the Second Amendment, I believe that people have the right to bear arms, period. At the same time, the one way that the law was written that I do agree with is that it currently allows individual restaurants to opt out. Private business can do what they choose. If somebody were to come into the restaurant and harm another patron with a weapon, with a handgun or a gun, liability has not been established. Usually the person who has the deepest pockets is going to be the people, or they're going to be the people who get sued. And in that situation, we usually are. And for us to try to avoid that situation, that's why we chose to opt out.
Philosophically speaking, I am more libertarian. I think you should be able to carry just about anywhere you want to. Doing what I do, which I consider fighting for the Constitution on a day in, day out basis, I see people committing crimes, robberies, assault, aggravated assaults, whatever the case might be, with firearms. Even though the penalties are enhanced, I'm not seeing that reduction. This is anecdotal, but I do enough volume I think I can speak to it. I don't see a reduction in the actual the crimes committed.
I did go into law enforcement for my formal education, as Melissa mentioned, but I ended up not wanting to enforce certain things that I would have to enforce if I would have been hired in that field. And but in that time, I did an internship with the St. Paul Police, so I had some exposure there. I spent some time out at the range, and I ended up buying my first handgun, and I moved to Virginia. I was living out there, and I looked into Virginia's laws. They have open carry laws, and so I made sure I researched the laws and knew what I was doing. And I even went down to the Arlington Police Department, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, this is the laws. I understand. I want to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble for doing what I think what I believe I should be able to do." I was out on a walk one day, and I got rolled up by, there was about 10 cops, and I was surrounded, and I was cuffed, and my firearm was taken from me. Anyway, I started open carrying more and more, and getting more involved with this issue. We spent a lot of time in New Hampshire with the Free State Project, and there's a lot more people up there who open carry, so I encourage anybody interested to check that out. They were threatening me with we're gonna get the ATF involved, you're gonna be in prison for 10 years for trafficking firearms and And I was like, hey, I know I'm legal, and if for some reason you guys are able to find a law that says I'm not, then maybe that law needs to be challenged. But they, really, we laugh about it, and it's an extreme position, but if you bow down to these dictates, they're just going to come more and more. It's like the public choice theory. They're not necessarily bad people. It's just the institution. There's no competition for this monopoly of this good, of this law enforcement that they're providing. So they have no way to know if they're doing well or not, except for expanding their authority or by hiring more people. And that's why if you let them take one right, they're just going to keep taking more and more. History has shown that governments have been the biggest deniers of rights. They've slaughtered hundreds of millions of people. People used to come up to me and they would say, "Oh, are you a police officer?" And I'd say, "Oh no," and I'd explain. I'd immediately start explaining, "Oh, you have this right. You can do this in Virginia, and here's why." And then I tell them why I do it. But now that later on, I learned it was more effective when people would ask me, "Are you a police officer?" I'd say, "No. Why do you ask?" And it caused them to think, "Why do I automatically assume someone with a firearm has a badge? I don't think anybody else has a duty to protect me, and even someone with a badge." And that's the way the courts have ruled. They rule police departments don't have a duty to protect the individual. So I take it upon myself. I think freedom coupled with responsibility. I want to differentiate law and legislation, and this is like Hayek's thing. Legislation is just man-made. Sure, some of it may be moral, and a lot of it's not. But we all know how to act. We know how to not steal, not hurt each other, not be violent. and society can develop these like mechanisms spontaneously, you better do that than a centralized bureaucracy, one-size-fits-all sort of organization can do. Live your life morally, be true to yourself, like you don't need permission from other people to protect yourself.